Noah Odich, he hosts his own podcast, Stick to Sports. Excuse me, it's very good. The impetus for this is how good he has. He has three questions, but his first one was how good is RJ Barrett? Is his recent play just a fluke, or is there a true improvement there? And this was sort of an extension. The Knicks beat the Grizzlies the other night, and there was this talk afterwards where everyone assumed that the Knicks were in this position where they ended up with RJ at 3 in the 2019 draft, and they fell one short again. But now the impetus among Knicks fans is, or the belief, excuse me, among Knicks fans is that gap between Ja and RJ Barrett has shrunk. And so I want you to answer Noah's question, Adam, because you were team RJ Barrett for most improved player. But I also want to know what you think about Ja versus RJ and who you would build around long term, or who you think is going to be better long term.
I am buying the RJ Barrett improvement. I think that the numbers we're seeing right now, and since the All-Star break, he's been averaging 20 points, 5.6 rebounds, 3.1 assists, 47% from the field, 44.1% on threes, and he's been getting to the foul line more. And I think that those are indicative of a more controlled and intelligent style of play where he is fitting into the offense better. He's always taken the right kinds of shots this season, but they're starting to fall more often, which I think is, him gaining that consistency, gaining that understanding of his role within the Knicks offensive schemes. And I do think we can reasonably expect him to play at this kind of level moving forward. That still doesn't mean that I'm taking him over Ja Morant, who, even though he's coming off this loss to Barrett and the Knicks, since the All-Star break, he's averaging 17.8 points, 7.0 assists. The shots haven't been falling as frequently, but if you look at the roles, Barrett is still filling more of a complementary role where he's relying on setup passes from other players and Julius Randle taking away defensive pressure from him. And Ja Morant is spearheading everything that Memphis does. And ultimately that role is still going to be more important. We're dealing with a larger sample of unquestionably beneficial play. And you watch Ja Morant play, and what he can do with the basketball and with his body is it remains astounding. I still think that Barrett has an all-star kind of ceiling, but Ja Morant has an all-NBA ceiling.
Right. I actually think that they are. I would probably put RJ Barrett's ceiling after watching him closer to all NBA. And that's sort of where I think it's close. And I agree with everything you've said. Ja Morant is look, 2/3 of Ja Morant's shot attempts are going unassisted. About half of RJ Barrett's shot attempts are going unassisted. The roles are just different. Ja Morant is the primary offensive engine. There's a chance that RJ Barrett can technically get to that point. He's not a bad passer. When he can really put more pressure on the rim, the defenses are going to collapse. And we've seen him be able to, make the easy reads, but the smart reads that are going to lead to pretty good shots for his teammates. I'm still interested to see what could happen if they surround him with more spacing in New York. I do trust his shooting more so than I do Ja Morant's at this point. I know RJ is working with a lot of catch and shoot attempts from beyond the arc. Those things are going in. I think what the difference is going to be, you've already pointed out, is that Ja Morant has the primary orchestration role, and he might be, and we're not talking about this enough, and I don't know if it's because the Grizzlies forever fly under the radar, even though they've been really good this season relative to what they've dealt with Ja missed time, but Jaren Jackson Jr. has missed a ton of time this year. So I actually do think, though, if we get to a point where RJ Barrett is more of a staple at the free throw line, where it does seem like certain games early on he's going to make the decision to attack, but it can kind of peter out throughout the course of the action, there's a chance to me. I don't know if I would peg it. Maybe I'm going to say a 35 to 40% chance that RJ Barrett ends up being the better player over Ja Morant at this point. I like his size for what he's going to be able to do defensively. I think he's gotten a lot better with what he's doing off the ball. Perhaps this is the Knicks fan in me speaking, or not giving Ja Morant enough credit, and he's not dealing with all these shooters around him on the Grizzlies either. He could benefit from the second ball handler that RJ has in Julius Randle. I still think there's more to plumb with RJ Barrett as a from-scratch scorer. And I don't know if the Knicks ever get to that point, but that combined with his defensive improvement and then just accuracy on the shots that he is getting from beyond the arc. You can't ask the player to do better on shots that he's just not expected to take right now. I think there's a really, I wouldn't call it a good chance. There's a semi-significant chance that this debate is is not as foregone as people billed it as last year.
Especially just given RJ Barrett's age and the roles that he's filled throughout his career. I mean, lest we forget, he turns 21 on June 14th this year. Like, he is still a 20-year-old despite being in his second NBA season. And even during his one and only season at Duke, like under Mike Krzyzewski, Duke does not run an NBA-style offense. It produces NBA-caliber players, but because there's so much one-and-done talent, you tend to see a lot more isolation-heavy attacks and alternating possessions and the roles that they're asked to fill. We saw this really with Jason Tatum too, where I don't think we truly knew what he was going to be on the offensive end because of what he was asked to do and did at Duke. There is more to RJ Barrett than we knew.